Welcome to the deep dive. We basically take one source and pull out all the key stuff so you get the insights fast.
Yeah, like a shortcut to being well-informed on something interesting.
Exactly. And today we're diving into a Japanese book, Oshi, which translates to everything starts from likes and dislikes.
It's by Kusuno Kike, who's a management scholar, professor at Hirotsubashi Business School.
And the book's core idea, it's actually pretty simple but powerful. It argues for the wonderfulness of deciding things based on what you genuinely like and dislike.
It sounds almost too simple, maybe, but he builds a strong case.
I think so. I mean, think about your own experience, right? You probably have things you really enjoy doing, maybe writing or talking with friends, maybe even, I don't know, a specific type of game.
Uh-huh. Things you're drawn to?
But then there's the other stuff, the things you kind of have to do, like cram school back in the day, or maybe entrance exams, or even work sometimes, that feeling that it's just necessary, not something you're passionate about.
Yeah, that distinction between want to and have to. It's very real.
And the author, coming from this field of competitive strategy, well, he connects this idea to business success.
Right. His background is all about how companies compete. And he says, look, just doing what everyone else thinks is good, that's not enough.
Not for real advantage, anyway.
Exactly. You need to create a decisive difference, something that really sets you apart from competitors.
Okay, let's unpack that. A decisive difference, like when you choose clothes, or potato chips, even beer, or where you eat out.
Yeah. Or watches, manga, even like who gets hired or which idols or gamers grab your attention. Why that one?
There's usually a specific reason, isn't there? Something that clicks.
It's that decisive factor. Think about brands or people who really stand out. Southern All-Stars, maybe Yonezu Kenshi, or restaurants like Caesarea, watches like Rolex versus, say, something else, Uniqlo.
They all have a strong identity. You know what you're getting, and it's distinct.
And here's the kicker, the author's big insight. He argues these decisive differences, the things that make something truly unique and valuable, they come from fully embracing and really going after your own likes and dislikes.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about personal happiness. It's actually a strategic advantage.
That's the argument. So our mission today is to really explore this idea, the excellence of making choices based on what you genuinely prefer.
All right, let's get into the main points then. The first big one is, if you want to become a real pro at something, you actually have to like the work.
Yeah, this is fundamental to his argument. Because liking something, that's what fuels the long-term continuous effort needed.
You stick with it.
You stick with it, exactly. Even when it's hard, even when no one's patting you on the back. And over time, that kind of dedicated effort leads to unique skills others just won't develop.
Because they wouldn't put in the same focused time if they didn't enjoy it.
Precisely. And that creates the competitive difference we were talking about.
He uses an analogy in the book, right, about ants.
Yeah, it's great. Imagine someone just fascinated by ants. They'll study them, watch them for hours, read everything. Not for praise, not for immediate results, just because they like ants.
Pure curiosity.
And eventually, they become a real expert. It's like that old saying, hold a high know liking something is the key to becoming skillful at it.
So passion isn't just nice, it's actually the engine for developing expertise.
That's the core idea. Now flip it. Someone doing a task they dislike.
Ugh. Effort feels like pulling teeth.
Right. It's a burden. You need constant positive feedback just to keep going. And if that disappears, you drop it. You don't build those deep, unique skills.
So the author basically says, if you find yourself thinking, oh man, I have to really work hard at this, like it's a chore.
Then maybe it's not the right fit for you. At least not if you want to reach a level where you make a real decisive difference.
Yeah.
You probably won't get there.
You see this with people who seem to genuinely love their work, don't you? Like Nakayama Kinkun and his whole muscle thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Kenshi Ineza with music, Daigo Umehara in the fighting game world. Their dedication seems to come from a really deep place of enjoyment.
Yeah, but okay, let's acknowledge the reality for a lot of people. Many folks feel like they're just working to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
Loving the job feels like a luxury.
The book definitely acknowledges that. Working just to earn a living is, well, it's a different calculation. But from an economic perspective, if your job involves skills that tons of other people have and can do just as well, the supply is high.
So the financial reward might be limited, basic economics?
Exactly. So if you want to create significant value, become kind of irreplaceable. It loops back to developing those unique skills.
Which comes from?
That deep, sustained effort fueled by actually liking the work.
Okay, so message one. To be a top pro, loving the work isn't just a bonus, it's pretty much essential.
That's the takeaway.
All right, but here comes the pushback, right? People say, sure, follow your passion, but only a few lucky people can actually make a living that way. For most of us, hobbies are hobbies, work is work.
Yeah, that's a common view. The book tackles this by clarifying the difference. Work, it says, is doing something for someone else in exchange for payment.
Whereas a hobby is purely for your own enjoyment, like fishing for fun versus being a commercial fisherman.
Exactly. The income source defines it. And obviously, for something to be work, someone else has to value it enough to pay for it. Customers, clients, an employer.
Right, there needs to be demand.
And this is where people get tempted, you know. They see a trend, something customers seem to want right now. Like those tapioca shops that popped up everywhere, or food trucks, or certain YouTube trends.
Like mukbang or toy reviews, yeah. People jump on the bandwagon.
They jump on it, hoping for quick success, even if they have zero personal interest in tapioca or whatever it is.
But the author argues that's a shaky foundation.
Very shaky. In the long run, it's usually unsustainable. Why? Because you're not building that unique difference based on your own strengths or passions.
And your motivation is purely external.
Right. So when things get tough, and they always do, there's no inner drive to push through. You haven't truly invested yourself. So it's easier to just abandon it and chase the next trend.
Whereas if you actually like it, you're more likely to persevere even if results aren't immediate.
Exactly. Which leads to the author's recommended order of operations, so to speak.
Okay, what's the order?
First, figure out and pursue what you genuinely like. Then, think about how to connect that with what customers or the market wants. The sequence is key.
So passion first, then market alignment.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like an artist creating music they love first, and then thinking about the audience. Not the other way around, where they try to guess what the audience wants and make something soulless.
Okay, I get it. So what customer needs matter. Start with your own authentic preferences and build from there. Find the overlap.
That's the idea. Build on what you genuinely care about.
Okay, but what if your big passion, like, I don't know, collecting bottle caps, just isn't going to pay the bills? The book doesn't just say follow your dreams blindly, does it?
No, it's more nuanced than that. It acknowledges many initial dreams might not be feasible as careers.
So what then?
This is where the next crucial step comes in. Really break down and, importantly, verbalize your likes and dislikes.
Verbalize, like actually put them into words.
Yes, dig deeper than the surface passion. Maybe bottle cap collecting itself isn't a career, but why do you like it? What are the underlying elements?
How do you do that?
You reflect. What things do you do without being told? What activities absorb you? Then ask why. What's the appeal?
The book suggests categories, right? Like maybe realize you like things that offer high pay or you prefer working alone.
Or you dislike group projects or rigid hierarchies. Maybe you enjoy talking to people or being physically active, or you hate routine tasks. You identify these core components.
Can you give an example, like the Kenji example in the book?
Right. So Kenji likes competitive video games. Okay, but why? Is it the competition itself? The clear win-loss outcome? Mastering skills?
Understanding the why helps guide career thoughts.
Exactly. Maybe it suggests he be good in performance-based roles or freelance work where results matter directly, rather than a 9-to-5 with fixed tasks.
And he also dislikes working with others, specifically the hierarchy and being micromanaged.
So that refines it further. Maybe solo, performance-based work is ideal. Could be game streaming, sure. But maybe also freelance writing, coding, driving a taxi, anything where he has autonomy and clear metrics.
So even if the original passion isn't the job, the element of why you liked it can point towards a suitable career.
Precisely. And if that passion, like the bottle caps, really isn't viable financially.
Keep it as a hobby.
Yeah, keep it as a fulfilling hobby. But use your analyzed, verbalized likes and dislikes to find paid work that's at least relatively enjoyable that aligns with those core preferences.
The author did this himself, right, with writing and music.
Yeah, he mentions loving both, but pursued writing as his career and kept music as his personal passion. He leveraged his like for writing.
And the key is that verbalization step. Why is putting it into words so important?
Because, as the book argues, humans think primarily through language. Articulating your preferences, really nailing them down in words, allows you to consciously use them when making choices. They become tools.
Not just vague feelings anymore.
Exactly. Actionable insights, and this applies to everything, not just jobs.
Like the author's watch example.
Yeah. He realizes he likes things that are light and beautiful and dislikes heavy things. Seems minor, right?
Kind of.
But it guides his choice. He prefers a Grand Seiko watch over a Rolex, even though Rolex might have better resale, more recognition.
His personal preference for lightness wins out over societal status symbols.
Exactly. It's about honoring your own likes, not what others think you should like. And he applies this lightness preference everywhere: backpack, laptop, shoes, clothes, phone.
It shows a consistent underlying value once he verbalized it.
Right. So breaking down and verbalizing those often unconscious preferences helps you make choices that genuinely satisfy you, way beyond just finding a job.
Okay, so we understand our preferences. Maybe we've even verbalized them. But how do we really know if we'll like doing something professionally? Imagination versus reality.
Yes. Big point in the book. You really can't know until you try it. Reality is often very different from what we picture.
Totally. You might dream of being a YouTuber, but then find the editing tedious or the pressure intense.
Or you look forward to a new game, like Monster Hunter in the example.
Yeah.
But the actual gameplay disappoints you. Expectations don't always match experience.
So the book's advice is?
There's a direct quote. 1 minute of actual experience is more important than 10 hours of imagination.
Get out there and do it.
Basically, yeah. The author suggests a let's just try it attitude. Less overthinking, more doing.
But isn't imagination important too? For planning and stuff?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the book argues it's most effective after you have some real experience to ground it. You need data points from reality.
So experience first, then imagine and refine based on that.
That's the suggested order. Experience provides the foundation for useful imagination.
Makes sense. You need something real to work with. Now, linked to this idea of trying things is another interesting concept. Challenging yourself, but expecting to fail initially. That sounds pessimistic.
It does, but the logic is actually about resilience.
Yeah.
If you go into something expecting instant success, you put huge pressure on yourself.
And then the first setback feels like a disaster.
Exactly. You get discouraged easily and might just quit because your expectation was success and you got failure.
And the reality, especially in business or creative fields, is that failure happens a lot.
Way more often than success, usually. The book points to titles like Tadashi Yanai from Uniqlo's 90% Failure or architect Tadao Ando's Repeated Defeats. Failure is part of the process.
So you can't learn if you don't try, and trying often involves stumbling.
Right. So the author advises a lighter approach. Go into new things thinking, well, I'll probably fail at first anyway.
How does that help?
Well, for one, you're less crushed when you inevitably hit bumps. It protects your motivation. And two, if you do succeed early on, it feels even better, like a bonus.
The book calls this optimistic pessimism, right?
Yeah, it's a great phrase. Expect the setbacks, but remain optimistic about the overall journey. It connects to another book mentioned, The Thinking of People Who Don't Worry. Apparently, people who don't worry constantly tend to approach things expecting initial failure. They plan for it, maybe assume only a 10% chance of immediate success is actually pretty good.
So managing expectations helps you keep going.
Crucially, it stops early failures from derailing your whole effort. You build resilience.
Okay, that's a really useful mindset shift. Now, the book talks about two specific benefits you get from actually pursuing things you like. What are they?
The first one is really powerful. The act itself becomes the reward, regardless of the outcome.
Meaning?
Meaning, if you genuinely enjoy doing something, you can get lost in it, lose track of time, just by doing it. The process itself is satisfying.
Like playing a game you love for hours, even if you're losing sometimes.
Exactly that. Or the author's example again. He likes writing, so even if a book doesn't sell millions, the act of writing itself provided value and enjoyment to him.
It reminds me of die-hard sports fans, like the Hanshin Tigers fans in the book.
Right. They enjoy supporting the team, going to games, the whole experience, win or lose. Obviously, winning is better, but the enjoyment isn't solely dependent on it.
So if you find you only want to do something if you're guaranteed success or praise,
it might suggest the like isn't as deep, because outcomes are often out of our control, right? So finding joy in the process, the journey, that makes life much more fulfilling.
that really lands. Okay, what's the second benefit?
The second one is that pursuing what you like helps you respect what others like.
Interesting. How does that follow?
It's fairly straightforward, actually. When you're busy and happy doing your own thing, something you chose and enjoy, you tend to be more tolerant and accepting of others doing their thing.
You're not feeling resentful because you're fulfilled yourself.
Pretty much. The book uses a food analogy again. If you're happily eating your favorite curry,
You don't care if the person next to you is eating fried rice.
exactly, you're both satisfied. But if you're forced to eat, say, cold noodles that you hate,
You might glare at the person enjoying their fried rice.
right, you feel deprived, so you might resent their enjoyment. It translates to work, too. If you like your job, you're probably cool with others pursuing their different passions.
But if you hate your job,
You might become that person who grumbles about others or wants to drag everyone down into the same unpleasant tasks. So finding work you like, or at least don't actively dislike, makes for a better dynamic with others too.
okay, so pursuing likes is rewarding personally and makes you more tolerant. But it's not all smooth sailing, is it? The book mentions a downside, or maybe a consequence.
Yeah, really important reality check. When you truly pursue your likes, you develop individuality.
Yeah.
You become distinct. And that very distinctiveness, well, it will inevitably be disliked by some people.
You can't be unique and universally loved.
That's the essence of it. Think about it across different areas. Music. A metal band has passionate fans, but probably turns off classical music lovers.
Sure.
Popular businesses. Uniqlo, Kurasushi, Ramen-jiro, lots of fans, but also people who dislike them for various reasons. Maybe preferring high-end options or having health concerns.
Even educational content like the Fermi Manga University channel mentioned.
Even that has detractors. It's just the way it is.
Like those VTubers or bands like Maximum the Hormone or Creepy Nuts you mentioned earlier, they seem okay with not being for everyone.
Exactly. They cultivate a specific vibe, a specific audience, and that focus is their strength. So being disliked by some isn't necessarily failure. It can be a sign you're actually developing a strong, authentic identity based on your likes.
Wow, okay. That puts a different spin on criticism.
It does.
This has been really fascinating, a deep dive into everything starts from likes and dislikes. Just to recap the main threads, it's about the power of using your likes and dislikes to guide decisions.
And how that creates decisive differences, which is key for competitive advantage.
Right, because that difference comes from long-term effort, which needs passion, which means you need to actually like the work to become a pro.
And prioritize your likes first, then figure out the customer alignment. Don't chase trends you don't care about.
Yeah, and if your main passion isn't a job, keep it as a hobby. But crucially, verbalize your likes and dislikes to find work elements that do suit you.
Don't just imagine. Get quick experience. Try it.
And go in expecting initial failure. That optimistic pessimism helps you persist.
Plus the two big benefits.
Hmm.
The process becomes the reward, and you respect others' choices more.
And finally, accepting that developing a strong like-based identity means some people just won't like it. And that's actually okay, maybe even good.
That pretty much covers the core.
So thinking about all this, what particular point really sort of resonated the most with you?
You know, it's actually something quite simple. Just the idea that there's a real, a genuine happiness that comes just from having things you like in your life.
Yeah, that intrinsic value.
Exactly. It's not about the outcome or the utility always, just the feeling itself. It's fundamental.
It really is. And as the book points out, you can't buy that feeling, can you? You can't pay a Hanshin Tigers fan enough money to suddenly become a passionate Giants fan.
No way. That preference is deep, it's personal, it's not transactional.
Which leads right back to the author's ultimate message, doesn't it?
I think so. That these likes and dislikes, these feelings, they're maybe the strongest, most unviable things we have.
And following them, understanding them, using them, that's what ultimately leads to the most valuable outcomes, both for ourselves and maybe even in what we create for others.
A really powerful idea to sit with.
Indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us.